Toby and John. It's Walter. I'm behind the camera.
Hi, Walter.
What's happening?
I forgot to change the name on our things to we're the mystery guest XYZ.
Hi, Mr. Guest XYZ. So this is half of the Adams family. We just watched Hellbender, which I still love. You guys.
All right.
I wrote about Hellbender that it was one of 2 movies I saw that year that gave me like a physical thrill as I was watching it. The other one was Spielberg's West Side Story. So you're in strange company, but good company. So thank you so much. I see Zelda, and I'm gonna let her in. She's connecting.
Thank you for having us, Walter.
Hey, thank you so much for doing this. We're so appreciative. This is CU Denver's Filmmaking Club.
Recording?
And I'm gonna have to hit record. They have to remind me every single time to record.
Recording in progress.
Because I'm so elderly. Okay. Your hosts for tonight, the moderators are Parker and Jamie, and I'm gonna hand it over to them.
Hi, very nice to meet you guys. We just finished Hellbender and it was amazing. It was the first time for most of us for seeing it. It was fantastic.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Super
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us. I guess we'll just get right into it.
Go for it, Parker.
Yeah, so I just want to start off by asking a nice, easy question. What is it that you would say draws you to horror, like as a genre?
I'll start. I always like to say that horror is a great way to give breath to a nightmare. It's just a wonderful, benign playing field to exorcise our human fears, and it's really fun device to be creative through the horror realm. I mean, we always kind of feel like we're making dramas, but that they just have horrific textures added to them.
Yeah, for me, making horror is fun because you're allowed so much artistic freedom. The horror community, you can make a black and white movie, you can go heavy on metaphors, you can think about cinematography. There's just so many artistic values that are allowed in horror that are a lot harder to execute in any other genre.
Yeah, I'll add on. I'm Zelda, by the way. We're living apart, so we're in different parts of the world. But I love horror so much because of exactly what John just said. Like, you can make up your own rules, which is so fun. We used to make dramas, and that was such a pleasure. But you kind of have to follow a certain amount of rules, especially if you want to make money. And one of the fun things about horror is when you break the rules, people really like that. And I think that was just something really exciting.
Yeah, and then just that leads to my next question. I mean, a huge aspect of horror is like breaking those rules and kind of straying away from the conventions that have been like done over and over again. So I was just kind of curious, like, how hard is it to make something like original or like, finding creative new ways to scare audiences?
That's a super first time we've ever been asked that question.
That's a great question.
Because originality is so difficult. I think I'll start off the answer by saying one of the things we started out making movies very ignorant, like about how to make movies, about everything about filmmaking, and that helped our originality because we didn't know a lot. And so like when we first started doing festivals, people would be like, "Oh my God, you did this!" They tell us what we did, and we would look at each other like, "Holy crap, we didn't know that we were what we were doing." So it's like that's the beginning of some of our originality. I think is honestly ignorance.
Yeah. I think we come from the school of happy accidents. Maybe 40% of the time. I mean, we learned so much. We were just saying today, I was doing something on working on a film, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I've learned over the years, and how over the years, but still a lot of I think what's in our film's DNA is that we are in live, like action of our films, we're kind of living through that education
and
and often making mistakes, and sometimes they just work and we keep them.
Yeah. It's so easy to want to like. We watch horror films very often, and are like, oh, that's so cool. Like maybe we should do that in our film. And I think that's also like a way of like being original is like taking something from a film that you really like, but then flipping it into something that goes along with your storyline, or just kind of like using fun. Using that sense of like violence that you see in that film, but in a completely different way, like switching the weapon and making it more like personalized to your film. So I think sometimes we feel worried about getting inspiration from other films, but I think when you can't help but watch and be like, oh, that was inspiring. So it's like a question of like how you can turn that and twist it into working with your own story.
Yeah, and to add, Z, I think like another thing that we definitely talk about is horror tropes. There's so many horror tropes, and we love to talk about a horror trope and just ask ourselves like, how can we take this horror trope and just put it right on its head? Like, I don't know if anybody out there saw the DVD dig, but Zelda came up with the idea of let's make like a lot of the time a young girl will be killed in a movie and she'll be a victim and she'll be a kind of a powerless victim, and then the movie will be all about the sadness of that. And when we made the DVD dig, Zelda was like, how about we don't make her a victim? How about we make her the powerful one here? And so she flipped that whole ghost genre on its head, and we had a ton of fun with it. And then that actually went on to even kind of some gender flipping even by the end. Like one thing kind of begets the next. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I want to add one other thing to that too. I think there's a lot to be said about following your guts, your instincts. I mean, often it's easy to second guess your intuition, but I think it's a good idea, especially if you're stuck on something, to go back to that original like gut instinct you had, because often that's where you are your most playful, and you are coming from a place I think of originality, because instincts are so personal.
Thank you. That was amazing. We have our first audience question. Is Matthew here? Come on down, Matthew.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for taking time to speak with us, guys.
Of course.
Which question did you want to ask?
Your second one.
Okay. All right. There's a lot of really cool inserts in this film. Just a wealth of like fantastic abstract visuals. Some of them kind of allude to the past of the Hellbenders, and some of them just kind of contribute to the tone. I'm wondering, how many of these inserts did you shoot? How many make it to the final cut? What gets left on the floor? Because there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in there.
That's a fun question.
A ton hit the floor.
Let the
bodies hit the floor. Yeah.
We have a carpet of like discarded inserts.
This, Z, do you want to answer it?
No, it seems like you want to say something. Go.
Yeah, just that this a Hellbender, especially what you're alluding to, which is like the visions of the book and the visions that are there, those super psychedelic things, were very experimental. We were learning why we did it. They actually came from an editing mistake that we made when we were making a video for our band. And so once we saw that mistake and once we saw how cool it looked, we were like, oh, and so we filmed a ton. Anytime we were in any situation that looked psychedelic, we were like, Zell, put on the black sheet and head out into the mist, or stand next to that buffalo, or whatever it was. And so, or cover her in blood, or cover Toby in blood, and cover our neighbors in blood. We did so much kind of psychedelic shooting, and so much of it hit the floor. But it was fun. I mean, that's kind of how we do it.
Totally. Like that's one of the perks of like making films together as a family. And when we were making this film, I was I think I was in 10th or 11th grade in high school, and so I was homeschooled and we were traveling around because we were living in a trailer. So every day we were just shooting something different because we had time and we wanted to put energy into this, and it was fun. So as John said, we would just film so much that never even made it into the film. But it'd be funny because like we'd be like having a bonfire with a group of friends, and John would be like, "Oh, I brought the camera, Zelda. Let me videotape you in front of the bonfire going like this." And I'm like, "Dad, I'm trying to hang out with my friends right now. Like, come on, what do you mean?" But it made it into the film, and that's something that's just like so exciting. It's so just like hands-on and spontaneous, and sometimes it ends up working out.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Very cool.
All right. Our next question is, so a lot of horror, there's kind of like, suspenseful horror, there's like jump scares. So I just kind of wanted to ask you, what's like your opinion on the shock value of horror, and just, are you more of like a fan of just in your face, jumpy, kind of like trying to scare you, or kind of like slower burn, suspenseful?
I think
I like the slow burn. I like the kind of films that the minute it's over, I'm spending the next 2 hours still thinking about them and kind of looking forward to watching them again to see what I missed, or rethink things. I like stories that make me keep thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of sometimes think of like fear in two different ways. There's like the short-term fear where there's like a jump scare and it's like, oh fuck, that was scary. But then the real kind of like fear that I crave when I'm watching a horror movie is like the kind that like sticks with me while I'm trying to go to sleep. And that's often like when I'm watching like a scene like in Hereditary, the scene where like he's in a bedroom and there's like something in the corner, and you're like, is that a person, or are my eyes tricking me? You know what I mean? That is my favorite thing. Like creeping slow horror where your mind is just like, what is going on? That's my favorite.
Yeah, and for me, I used to like scary, like Phantasm was a big movie of mine. But then as I grow older, spiritual horror terrifies me more because I like to be scared. And so what's more scary to me is like spiritual horror rather than like a knife mad person, more like what's hell like.
Hey guys.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? So I have a couple things real quick. I was really taken in Hellbender and your other films too with this idea of women finding their voices. The opening sequence with the witch hanging is all done by women, it looks like, and then the Hellbender, is sewing her mouth shut. She's like kind of silencing herself. And I wondered if you would talk a little bit about women finding their voices in your film. Also, could you give like a little bit of background about your journey, like sort of packing up the RV and driving around the country and shooting movies? I think that's kind of an interesting idea for a bunch of film school people, right? So so the two things I guess is I won't repeat it because I don't remember. Good to see you guys.
Oh, great to see you. I'll start with the history. This was the second time we've packed up and hit the road to make a movie. Our very first film, which we shot in 2010, when Zelda was 6 and our older girl Lulu was 11. We like to take off, live on the road, and shoot where we are. Often where our stories, we haven't got a full script at the top of shooting, and we're discovering a lot along the way. And when you're living where you're shooting, that's really conducive to some great narrative fuel, because sometimes we'll just look out the window and that will guide what we're going to shoot. We would have no idea that there would be this crooked gnarled tree that's perfect for a certain scene, but we've just driven by it. So the next thing you know, we're pulling over and we're shooting that. And that's what we did with Hellbender as well, because it was the beginning of the pandemic. Zelda was remote schooling anyway. So we were like, shit, let's just take off. And we shot all over the country.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. And about the like women finding their voices, I mean, film has been something so freaking special to me, especially like I feel like growing up and getting to explore myself through film has been just such a gift. And getting to experience that also under the guise of both of my parents, and it's like my own personal diary. I feel like sometimes I can't really express the way that I feel just like through, I'm not the best like talker and stuff like that. So I feel like getting to explore it through filmmaking and through cinematography is a really great way of getting my feelings, you know, what it's like being just like a person growing up, a woman in this world, all this stuff, and putting it through film, and especially through like the avenue of horror. Like horror is such a great place to like talk about metaphors and allegories, all this stuff. So yeah, what do you think, Toby, as a woman making horror?
Oh, the genre film has been a great place, I think, for you and I to, you know, it's been a great place for the two of us to, I think, really find our footing, especially. Yeah. In fact, I'm about to embark, you know, on a plane across the seas to go to women's film festivals in Berlin and in India, and they're phenomenal. And then on that note, you mind if I just jump into the about Hellbender in particular? Like in Hellbender, we were interested. I mean, we really wanted to tell a story through a female lens, but through a strange kind of female. I mean, we really kind of tried to do something very original in terms of the concept of what these hellbenders were, as sort of women in form, but we kind of messed with their reproduction and how they're, you know, how they live and die, and the power they, and particularly Izzy, how she comes into her agency. And in that opening scene, like we thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting? Typically you have all these, you hear about these witch hunts, and often you hear about, or you think about men hanging female witches. In this case, we thought, well, what is it? What are they afraid of? Well, it's the fear that they have of female empowerment. And so we thought, well, if that's what people are afraid of, men or women, in this case, it's all women hanging this hellbender, that's going to be what the hellbenders feed off of. That's what makes them strong. That's what they love. That's what they like to devour. So we talk about the fear in the blood. And so that's how that scene kind of came about. A bunch of strong women hanging someone rightfully who has been devouring their children for power.
Thank you. To add on to that, and kind of just about your journey as a whole, you said that, I have like a little quote here, that it kind of all came about when like your dreams were coinciding. So you guys bought an RV and you made your first film, and we're just like all in our state in our life where, you know, we're starting our own creative journeys. And like, I think it's just really inspiring that you didn't wait for like, you know, a company or anything to pick you guys up. You just went out there and made films. So I'm just wondering, from your experience, has there been any like limitations and challenges you found like going out on your own, and like how have you overcome them?
I would say there's more limitations by not going out on your own, because then you got to ask permission from people, and you never want to ask permission from anybody for anything. And so we have found that we can move fast and furious when we're on our own, doing our own thing, making our own rules, or actually breaking our own rules. And every time we hook up with industry or with the gatekeepers or the permission givers, everything slows down because they play by their rules, and it's for us not fun. So our feeling, I'll speak for myself. My feeling within the family is, first of all, I love hanging out with my friends, Toby, Zelda, and Lulu. So there's that. But the other thing is our art has become our life now, and it's a great way to live, and we have found ways to accomplish everything we want without asking permission. So an example is, like, if we have a scene that we want to do that we realize, wow, that would really just cost a lot, we would need help, we would need like more people, we would need a bigger team. Well, then we talk about how can we take the nugget of the scene and strip it down so we can do it. And I think that that's really important when you're setting out, is figuring out ways to get it done so that you never have to ask permission and never have to ask somebody, could you open this door for me? Because you don't want to ask people to open doors for you. Or at least I don't think I do. What do you think?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like what you said.
What do you find to be some of your guys' greatest strategies and like practices to stay afloat as your own like independent organization, other than going to the core of each scene and finding what really makes it work and figuring out how you can do it the best? Are there any general strategies that you're employing to like make sure that you have the budget that you need, that you have locations that you need, that you have the actors that you need when they're not yourselves, of course?
We don't, it's funny. We kind of don't work from a specific budget. We just kind of, we're sort of known for using what we have at our fingertips. Because if we waited for a certain budget or for this amount of bells and whistles, which we might not even know how to use, we just wouldn't get it done. So we tend to kind of just go with what we have. And in a way that I think it's sort of a strength for us, because we get to really focus on the story at hand. We're not distracted by what we think is missing or what we think we need. It's like, no, what do we have? And we happen to have a lot. Like, we're in the house where we shot a lot of our last film, Where the Devil Roams. Across the street is a 1931 Chevy that John's dad owns, that we were like, hey, we got that. Let's put that into the story. And she's like one of our main characters in Where the Devil Roams. Yeah, so we're very, very, very interested in just saying yes to what we have.
But also, let's say this though, because we do use other people and we do use situations, we do use stores. If we need a store, we go to the IGA in our town and we say, could we shoot for an hour in your store? And usually they say, sure. You know, one of our advantages is there's only a couple people. It's not like, okay, we're going to bring in 15 people and lights and have to move everything. If we need a cop, we go to the sheriff and we say, hey, Bobby, would you mind being in our movie? And he's like, oh yeah, I'd love to be, so it's like a lot of people will say yes. Then the question is how do you capture them naturally? Like, how do you trick them into being relaxed? And because they're not actors. But like, for example, we shot, like the beginning of Hellbender. You guys just watched Hellbender, right? So in the beginning of Hellbender, that was we needed a store to open up. So we asked a lady in town. We liked her store and we liked her, and we said, Tess, would you mind being in the movie? And she said, sure. So we got to use her store. She was an actress. We got my dad to come in that day. So it's kind of like it's a little difficult sometimes to shoot regular people, but they're both magic and difficult, because they're magic if they get relaxed. They're difficult if they try to act.
And we always make sure that the people we are working with, whether they're experienced in film or acting or not, are just fun. And I don't mean to be flippant about that, but it's good to have a family, that, and I mean that in a broad sense. It's good to surround yourself with people you're not going to fight with. You challenge each other, but for the greater creative good. But you surround yourself with people who are going to be able to play in the same sandbox with you nicely and have fun.
And Zelda, like Walter asked about the opening scene of Hellbender. Where did all those ladies come from?
My soccer team. And yeah, honestly, we just had them basically playing a warped version of themselves, which was, mothers that are very defensive of their, kids that are not exactly soccer players in Hellbender, but, are powerful, strong mothers. So, I think exactly what you guys just said, like building stories based on, what you have around you. Like, originally, Hellbender, we wanted it to be a way bigger story. We wanted it to be a story about Izzy, and she's in high school, and she maybe, has a partner or a best friend, and, she's growing up discovering her powers. And we were like, wait, we don't have any money to do this, and two, we don't have access to a bunch of actors and a high school all the time to shoot at. And so then that's when our story got a whole lot smaller, and I think it worked out so much better, and I'm really happy about that. And it kind of went along with the isolated feeling that Izzy's character was going through.
Jumping off of that, you talk so much about shooting like what you have and what's at your fingertips, but a lot of what's in Hellbender is like very heavy visual effects or very heavy practical effects. How do you come about getting these kind of things as an indie filmmaker, and how do you find that balance in between those visual effects and those more practical effects like the tunnel?
Oh, cool.
It's fun.
Yeah. Well, we have a friend who's a wonderful effects guy. He's part of our family now. So we talked to him about how to achieve like the key coming out of the hand. That's all his design. He tells us how to shoot it. It's actually super simple. Anybody can do it. It's just a composite of a green screen, a key coming out of a green screen, and then composited over a hand. But everything has to be shot on sticks so that it's nice and still, and the composites sit well together. Like the tunnel.
Yeah, the tunnel had a few,
Right.
There were a few chapters to the tunnel. Like first, John was kind of building something with a lot of spray foam and like chicken wire and just twigs, collected from the earth. But then also like just like 100 feet away, someone was like digging a tunnel in the earth because they had to like lay down some pipes there, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just crawling around in that one night. And then John just kind of managed to kind of fit it all together. And in the end, the pieces he built were not that long, but we would just shoot it in segments, and John would creatively kind of edit them together. And in the end, it kind of plopped out on our driveway at night, where the last moments of the scene take place. But then we matched that with this amazing barrack, these barracks we saw in Washington State when we were in our RV, and at night they were just so creepy and they sounded so echoey and great, and they were pitch black, and so we just kind of married all those things together. It's kind of because sometimes if you don't have we don't have lights, maybe we use one carpenter light that we get from Home Depot, but we generally use natural light. Or in that, at the end of the film, in Izzy's cave, we just use these flashlights, and they just they just worked for us. And in a way, sometimes when you have to be so simple, you do yourself a favor.
Okay, I got a quick funny story about effects. We had bought a harness for Zelda so that she could fly, and we were going to make the coolest flying scenes ever. No one was going to match that. And do you remember this scene?
Yeah, I remember.
And so we set her up between two trees in a field, and we filmed her. We hadn't figured out how to make her be able to fly like Superman, so she was just spinning through the air like total madness, be like, Dad, this sucks. And we filmed it. We're like, okay, it's gonna be great, and it was terrible. And so we were like, what do we do? And it turned out that the best way to film, and this was for the scene where Izzy flies in front of the window. I don't know if you can remember, but she flies in front of the window and her mother wakes up. And it turns out that really what's flying in front of the window is a little green rubber frog tied to a fishing line. And it just zooms by the camera so fast, and it looked great, these jiggly legs, and it was just so much better than real Z spinning on her harness through the air. So
I have another FX story too. So originally we had thought that there would be a lot of eating of babies, and we had these kind of real looking babies from Walmart, and we shot this thing over and over, and it just sucked. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, Izzy just like,
Yeah.
And we were gonna have our VFX guy Trey. At one point we wanted like the hellbender's jaw to unhinge and fall to the floor, like big enough for like a human to walk into. And we're like, this is just. I mean, it sounds really fun, but we did not go there, and I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, the practical and the SFX stuff in that looks amazing. All of it does.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
We have another audience question talking about SFX stuff from Linda Jocelyn, if you'd like to come on up.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Just watched your movie, really liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question basically was, I noticed you had a lot of like interesting, fantastical like locations, especially in the end of the film. There was like the dark, super like pitch black tunnel contrasted by this like white void. And I was just sort of wondering, you kind of touched on it a little bit, saying you didn't really have like a lighting team or anything, but from like a lighting and cinematography standpoint, like how do you exactly, like how do you decide what to show your audience? that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. Z, you want to answer or?
Wait. I'm sorry.
Well, I think he's mostly asking. I think he's asking about our lighting, which.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Our lighting is crazy simple. Sorry, there's just like someone staring at me. Like, we really like to shoot just in flat light. It looks just incredible. You can alter it as much as you want in the editing process. It also really gives like a very cool tone, which I feel like matches the kind of like folky dark tones of the film. But it was really fun to play with the exposure and very bright settings, especially in the dream sequences. And it kind of created like an alternate universe to create that separation. Yeah, artificial lights are really hard to use, especially often since we're shooting outside. So if there are any night scenes, it's often that we're shooting maybe around like 5 p.m. when the sun has started to set, and we in the editing process we turn that into night. John, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. We only shoot in flat light. We only use lights if we have to, and it's usually one construction light. It's too tricky for us to use lights, and none of us like the way like kind of like Hollywood lighting looks. Everything's lit up, and we don't particularly like that. When we try to, one of the things we also do is like Zelda said, we love blowing out the background because that gives it a real mystical quality. We'll also shoot in the snow. If we have a fresh snow, we love putting our characters in the snow because that solves a lot of illusion issues because it blows out and nobody has to fix anything. We were in Yellowstone, or no, I shouldn't say that. We were in a cool park somewhere in the West when we shot the mist scenes, like where the mist kind of blows through. Now, that was an example of we were in this sweet spot. We saw this bubbling mass of mist, and we were like, let's get Zelda and Toby in there, and it'll just have this mystical quality. And that whole scene is just magic, and none of that is effects. It's all just playing with light and letting that natural mist that wasn't in Yellowstone blow by our characters.
Yeah, nature just gives you so many gems. It really does, that you kind of can't beat. So if you have the time and luxury to sit and wait for that cloud to cover the sun, or the mist to rise over the mountain, then you're lucky.
Yeah, another time when we use nature, like we always watch nature, and if nature arrives and wants to act, we have our camera and everything ready. And the scene where Toby is looking at Zelda and Zelda disappears into dust, that was an example of, we were up on a nice mountain
in the Northeast this time.
Yep, yeah, right. And suddenly a storm rolled in, and it started to rain, and it started to mist, and the wind was whipping, howling, and we didn't know what we were doing, but there was no way we could miss it. And we designed that scene on the fly, and it's to me, it's my favorite scene in the movie, just because nature wanted to act.
And John's forgetting to mention the part where we literally got trapped on the mountain, because by the time we tried to get down, it was closed.
The mountain was closed.
It was
also
closed.
not a national park.
Also, the scene with the deer is another example of us. Like, we were hiking to scout another scene, and we came across that deer carcass, like the whole cleanly picked by coyotes deer carcass, and we were like, oh my god. So we hiked back to our car, drove home. Within an hour we were back there, Zelda and I are in our correct wardrobe, and we were just kind of devising a scene around that moment. And it's one of the most crucial scenes thematically in the film, and we were lucky to come across it.
Cool. I think you answered a lot more than I asked her. That was great. Thank you.
I'm sorry. We probably talked too much.
God, that was amazing. That's a lot. You gave us a lot of tips there that I thought were really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to ask, like, you guys are, you're doing the whole process yourself. You're the actors, you're the writers, you're the editors. And so I just kind of wanted to ask, like, do you guys ever find yourself getting burnt out? And just, like, how do you find that balance between your personal and professional lives?
That's a super valid question. I It's lucky when we have time because there will be times where maybe one of us is super exhausted and it's like, you know what, I know that the snow is amazing right now and it would be perfect to shoot, but I just can't go and do it. And then it's like, you know what, we'll have this opportunity again. Let's go and do it again. I think it's about understanding when we have time and when we don't. There, unfortunately, a lot of our filming that we do is very spontaneous. So when the light is hitting right or when our schedules are all aligning, it's kind of about understanding that in that moment, we kind of have to act as business partners and go out and shoot. And it's a beautiful experience. But when we know that we have time, we are totally able to be like, oh, right now we want to, you know, be filmmakers together, or other times, hey, let's all just have dinner together and go for a walk. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it, for lack of a better word, we really are a great working democracy, our family. And so that means sometimes you kind of just have to respect the other doesn't want to work right now, but like Zelda said, sometimes you can't deny that you have to get out there and do it. But for instance, like because Zelda, John, and I all direct the film, and sometimes we have different opinions, we'll just take turns directing a scene. You know, sometimes we'll do it 3 different ways. So when we are all together and we're all really game, we just make sure we all kind of get what we need and want, you know, and then whatever feeds the story best always rises to the top during the editing. That was kind of two answers to one question, but yeah, we're just very democratic how we work.
I have a short answer, or I hope it's short, to that question, which is that Zelda's laughing. She's like, "Oh my god."
I have a short answer.
And no, I just wanted to say that always having fun is the key to it. Just if you're having fun, you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good answer.
So you guys are so self-facing about your work. You know, you say you're guided by ignorance and accident, but there's so much intentionality about your work. Like, you know, Deeper You Dig, you have this image of Zelda in a bathtub and the mother being protective and seeking her, and there's a lot of subterranean imagery in that film as well, and also where the devil roams. You have kind of a switching of maternal and sororal roles. Talk to me about like the tunnel, because you're like, you know, I'll just crawl around in a tunnel, but it's like it's a vaginal tunnel that's leading into a womb where the daughter has put her mother. There's like really kind of strong symbolic things that you're doing in your films that's really consistent. It's not just an accident, right? If it's consistent. So how do you maintain that without kind of tipping over into being tedious? You know, I think that's a problem with a lot of modern horror films, right? Is people have a message and they're going to lecture you about it for 90 minutes. You don't do that. You have these really powerful, like, you know, chthonic images. So talk to me about worms and tunnels and things like that. How do you maintain that vision, that clarity of vision throughout your movies?
Awesome.
That is a great question, Walter. But, you know, I mean, I think because we are such a small unit, we are living and breathing our stories from every angle, that sometimes maybe in like a really large production, I could be wrong, maybe there are too many cooks in the kitchen. With us, they're just so few that we tend to really intrinsically understand what our stories are about, and on a very organic level, because a lot of it is bubbling up as we're doing it. I mean, I love that you bring up the tunnel, because so few people talk about that, and there is a real umbilical, you know, nature to that tunnel, and it ties into so many thematically it's very important to the story. But I really do feel like I just said, I think that we're just thinking things so much. It's sort of like we're sleeping and breathing it, that a lot of it, it's going to sound corny, but a lot of it just does feel almost like supernatural, like it's just kind of wants to present itself. We often say about our films, this film wanted to be made, and often the stories we're making do feel like they just want to be made. And part of that, I think, is because we're such a small unit, and a lot of it is just being regurgitated. Like, we're taking an ideal and we call it slinging spaghetti. While we're eating spaghetti, we're slinging spaghetti ideas. And so we are taking those in, puking out, regurgitating a lot of these ideas until we find the right one. And we have the luxury of failing and until we get it right.
However, we have themes that are really important to us. And one of the themes that you've just brought up is back to the womb. So in those themes, cinematically, we are always talking about how can we nail that cinematically. And so that's why it was back to the womb through that tunnel. That's why the poem says, it's the seasons going backwards. Like, we wanted to take evolution and turn it backwards. And that's what made the Hellbenders so interesting to us. And so finding ways to show that stuff cinematically was really neat. Like, for example, that scene when the mother looks back at the daughter and the daughter disintegrates, that's the opposite of what it should be. The daughter should be looking at the mother and she should be disintegrating. And so it's like, we wanted, like, we're taking evolution, and we talked about this a lot because it's such an odd concept. We needed the Hellbender to be something non-human with a non-human, is it called entomology? But a non-human, like, evolution. And so turning evolution backwards made them suddenly become really interesting. And then cinematically, that becomes so fun. How do you achieve that,
Also, we're a family, and there's no denying that all of our films very much have to do with the family. They have to do with some mundane things, just like the diurnal rhythms of human life. We're always talking about, you see our characters doing some of the simplest things, like eating a meal together, or in our latest film, Where the Devil Roams, they're washing dishes in the Depression era in a river. But there are a lot of mundane things that are important and beautiful to us because everyone relates to those. And it's what's fun in horror is to take those mundane things, that a mother and daughter might share, let's say, and squeeze in them through a lens of horror, so that something is both recognizable, familiar, but also kind of twisted. We love those themes of everyday life and family.
Yeah, and the whole like tunnel thing was just really fun to explore too, because like, most women like who get their period, it's a big part of your life, and it's also just something natural too. And that's one of the themes that we wanted to like cover in this film, is like what is nature, what is nurture, your actions, do they depend on what you were born with or what you grow up and like learn to be? And a lot of that is about, just, growing into yourself. And like, it was fun to explore that with the whole ideas of, cycles, reproduction, all of that. And then turning it into something spooky and creepy and nasty and weird and beautiful, you know what I mean? So it's so fun. And yeah. No, Toby is the master of everything, like period and all this stuff. So it was so fun watching her do all the research about like reproduction and all that stuff. And even in our most recent film, Where the Devil Roams, like we added something about having periods in it too, which it's always very fun.
Another thing that we should just bring up, because Walter's talking about like big concepts that are important to us. Another one that's always important to us is the anti-hero. Like our heroes they shouldn't be heroes. For example, at the end of Hellbender, it's like, is Izzy a bad entity, or is she a great entity because she's following her destiny? You know what I mean? And it's is it bad to be a shark? Not if you're a shark. It's bad if you're a human getting eaten on a raft, but it's not bad if you're a shark. And the same thing happens in The Deeper You Dig. It's like, how far will the mother go to feel the presence of her daughter? Will she befriend her daughter's murderer just so she can be close to her daughter? They're hard concepts. Hopefully they are. Hopefully people go away and they think, I don't like Izzy, or, oh my God, I would never befriend my daughter's murderer, no matter what, even if it meant that I'd be near her soul. So that to us is horror, is those troublesome problems.
Oh my God. Wait, I have a question. I've literally never gone to ask like anyone this, because like we talk about it all the time, but what do you guys think? Like whose team are you guys on? Are you on Izzy's team or the mother's team? Because I don't know. Actually, I feel like I'm looking on Izzy's team, but I kind of want to know what you guys think.
I'm on Izzy's team.
Man, I was just the moderator. I wasn't ready to answer questions. I'll contradict you. I'm on the mother's team.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
I'm Team Izzy. I like power. You know what I like? You know what I really like though is that these three movies that we're talking about, kind of are like a roadmap to you guys empowering Lulu and Zelda, and to making them like really badass people. And you see the progression of it, like for the devil rooms. Toby, you're fucking terrifying, but there's like a kindness to you too in between the terrifying parts of it, and you really need help. You really need the daughter to take on a lot of responsibility, and she certainly does that. And you see that progression from, her being murdered in the first of these three films, to her coming into her power in the second one, to the third one, her actually becoming the head of the family in a very real way, and that's really touching to me as a father of a daughter to see you guys prepping your daughter this way. Your daughter is this way. That's amazing. What a gift that you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But Walter, but you too, as a parent, like, do you understand how? I mean, what do you? I think that's cool that your team Izzy, but like it was important in
She's
Hellbender.
pissed.
No, but it's important. Like we want their. That's the thing. I think to have, for me, what I love in the film, which we try to do in ours, is to challenge the audience to make those decisions. Like you want to give them conflict so that they 1 minute they might shift from one team to the other. I mean, I understand the mother's need to protect her daughter because that mother has lived that life of violence, and she knows it's a very lonely one, and she can't help but defend her daughter from that. But at the same time, the mother surely deeply down knows, hey, I've given up my own my own instincts of bloodlust and power just to protect my daughter, and I'm trying to replace that with having a cool rock band, but in the end the rock band is trumped by the need for power. But it's fun to have those conflicts.
I'm sorry, I was just say the way that I approached Hellbender was from a racial perspective. It's like as a Chinese guy, I've really subsumed a lot of my instincts. I think throughout my life, naturally, I've been more soft-spoken than I am naturally. I've been less ambitious in some areas than I have been. My daughter is a killer. She's a cold killer, and she will go out and she will destroy people. And I love that she has that confidence. I love that I was able to give that to her, even though I subsumed that for myself. So, I recognize the mother, and I'm proud of what the mother sacrificed to give to her daughter. I think that's. I just connected to it that way, I guess. Anyway, I'm gonna stop interrupting. You guys doing great.
I want to mention something too, to just piggyback and from your question, Walter, before, was another cool thing. I mean, if you notice, like in all of our films, we use poems or the book in Hellbender. And when you have those are fun vehicles to kind of inject themes into your film without having to tell people like what's going on, through like the wolf poem. It's a perfect metaphor for what's going on, the wolf and the sheep. The book, we can tell a lot through the book, through those visions. Even the band, through the songs, we tell a lot about what's going on just through the lyrics and the nature of the songs. So it's really fun, and it's important for us to go back to your question, Walter, about how we keep those themes fresh. We use things like that, poems in our films.
One question I wanted to ask was just like filmmaking for horror, and specifically, what do you feel like is often an overlooked aspect when creating a horror movie?
Me, I think a lot of horror movies overlook the importance of the underlying drama, and we're lucky, or I feel like we're lucky because we started out making dramas and then we just covered them in blood and they became horror movies. If you look at Hellbender, it's a drama about a mother and a daughter and a rebellious daughter, but you cover it in blood and a little magic and suddenly it's a horror movie. I think horror sometimes can run into the rut of, oh, horror is just about blood.
Yeah.
Toby, you covered this question. I'm getting kicked out of this room I'm in, so I'm gonna go run to the stairwell.
For me, what's most terrifying in films is what feels very real. And so I think that sometimes horror films can be so focused on making the perfect scare that they can lose not so much these days. I think there are really great horror films out there, but they could think they can lose the human element that is most terrifying, you know, which is like what a child fears under its bed or something happening to those you love. And for me, I think if you lose focus on those things, your film might be missing something.
However, horror these days is wonderful. Horror is just, there's so much horror coming out and it's so metaphoric and filled with symbolism, and it's the horror community is the most open-minded and the most inclusive, and so there's so many great discussions going on in the horror community. It's wonderful.
So Zelda, are you 22 right now?
I'm 20.
20. You're 20. Okay. So you're in a room full of people who are your age, right? And they're being told, I think, a lot by people who don't have any success that this is a scary business to get into and it's hard and it's hopeless. What would you say, and what would you all say, as a matter of hope for them, for their careers, for their next steps? And yeah, what advice would you give, I guess, to the 20-year-old version of yourself?
I would honestly say, you know, making films is so fun, whatever genre you want to do. I've gotten to meet so many cool people from it. Like, definitely making the films is something that's really special to me, especially since I get to make it alongside my parents, who really are like my best friends. And I would definitely recommend that if you do have filmmaker friends, making films with them, because you get to learn about making films, but you also get to learn more about your friends and, you know, learn about film through your friends. It's something so special. But something else is I've also gotten to meet so many cool people because of where, you know, films have gone or going to festivals. There are so many wonderfully talented people out there. And yeah, it's just something I'm so grateful for. And I'll say you guys 100% know probably a lot more than me about film. I have never taken a film class, and that's such an advantage, I think, you know. So I envy you, and I think using that like technical knowledge is kind of like is so awesome, and it's something I want to explore more in like my academics. Yeah, what do you guys think, John and Toby?
Horror's the way to go because it's got an open-minded community. They're very accepting of anything. You could shoot a movie on your iPhone, and if there's some spark of originality to it, the horror community will watch it and talk about it, and it'll be up on Tubi or Amazon or whatever. I think that it's a great place to go out and create fearlessly.
This past year, I was lucky enough to act in some other people's films. Some were horror, some were not. And in the majority of them, there were young DPs. And one of them was only 23 years old. And these people were so cool. They were so creative. They were just wonderful to work with. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited by all these young people who are just out there doing stuff and like kicking ass. So I think that the key is to like just get experience. we just saw a film last night, John and I, and it was shot on an iPhone and it looked incredible. And I was like, oh my God, they just, I mean, John
Well,
and I
we
even
argued
talked
about that,
it.
but but it didn't matter. We went to see it in a theater, and on the ride home, we talked about whether it looked good.
It looked good.
Yeah.
And it looked great, and it was edited really well, and I wouldn't have known it was shot on an iPhone. But I just think that the point I'm trying to make is there's so many young people out there just doing great stuff, and I think it's just a question of, you know, just do it.
Horror is also the one genre that you can do that you don't have to have stars or high production values necessarily, and that's really important. That means you don't have to have a huge budget.
Who are these people that you're looking to for these influence in the horror community or just in the general indie filmmaking community? Like, who do you find that's inspiring you and wanting you to push forward? And just, I want film recommendations is kind of what I'm asking.
Oh, I know, Toby, you definitely have a lot. My favorite films, The Innocents, which came out in 2021, I think. It's, what is it, Norwegian, I think? Absolutely fucking incredible. Yeah, it's so good. It's like a mix between like Midsommar and Goodnight Mommy, if you like either of those films. It's like a beautiful combination of both, with like a touch of Stranger Things, maybe. I felt like Talk to Me was a good, like, kind of like blockbuster vibe movie. I really enjoyed that. And I love The Descent a lot. I think we find inspiration from so many different kinds of films, especially since, you know, we got 2 adults in the family, and me and my sister are, you know, 20 and 25. That's a bunch of different ages, and looking at our own inspirations that we've grown up with, that are looking back at, or that are coming out now. It's fun to combine all of them.
Well, When Evil Lurks was a great one from this year. That was my favorite. It was just really beautiful. Yeah. Damien Ruña from Argentina. I really like, and his previous film too, Terrified, was really great. But I just love his vision. There are a lot of really excellent female filmmakers out there whose work I'm loving, and I'm excited to see so many women out there making killer genre film. Not that they haven't been, but it's just before. But now I think they're a lot of their films are really like at the forefront of you know, the festival circuit, and hopefully more and more you see them playing in mainstream theaters as well. I love Saint Maud is one of my favorite films. I think Prano Bailey Bond is really wonderful, her film Censor, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Of course, I love The Babadook from you know, there's so many great films out there. Oh, one of my favorites, of course, I love the French filmmaker Raw and Titan, Julia Ducournau. So I'm just going to mention the chicks right now.
Nice. I'm going to mention the people like Walter, who talk to us about big concepts that make this fun. And you guys will see when you make movies that that's what's going to keep driving you, is you're going to do podcasts, and you're going to get reviews, and you're going to talk to people, and you're going to realize that we're all having a conversation about super deep stuff, and it's really fun to bring it to life visually. That's my favorite thing about making horror movies, and that's what keeps me inspired.
You're so lucky that Walter's teaching you, I gotta say, because when we first met Walter over Zoom with Hellbender, we walked away and we were like, oh my God, we are stealing all those ideas.
So Hellbender is now about
and I love, and I like Walter's visions, the way your brain thinks, and you like the romantics. I think a couple stuff I've read of yours, you talk about Wordsworth, and if you look at Wordsworth, the romantics, we probably are very influenced by them, because so much of what we do is influenced by nature and regeneration, and you know, the romantics are into that, and we're into that too.
The Harbinger is a great independent movie that I think brings in. Have you guys seen The Harbinger? It's got a heavy concept, and I think it's really well executed, and it's a super independent movie. It's wonderful.
All right, we're out of time. Is it cool if we take a group picture with you? We're gonna bring everybody to the front. And back.
Oh yeah,
All right,
please.
Oh, I think you just pin it. Watch. Pin. Can you pin two things? I think so. And pin. Ha ha.
Hey Toby, did you hear what Freud said about the romanticists?
Your eyes are
Yeah.
Get together.
Feeling that too.
Did I just see a Rhinecliff jacket? Is there somebody from upstate New York in there?
Oh, no, I got this. This is from a yard sale.
Make it feel bad about it.
No, it was a good deal.
Okay.
Hellbender on 3.
Hellbender on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hellbender!
All right. All right.
Yo,
Thank you so much, you guys. You guys
Hey,
are
thank
awesome.
you. It's really nice
Thank
tonight.
you so much for talking with us. It was truly a pleasure. It was truly.
so fun.
Thank
Oh
you.
my God.
Hope to
Thank
see all
you.
your work somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys rock.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.